Okay, let's start with a deck tech of the deck. So this is about the list that I like. Um, the main thing I'm unsure about is I could see playing 3 strokes and 1 gust. I'm not really that sure on that split. I just have 2-2 because I've been planning to side and dispute against green. And Gust can like deal with troll when like your other counter spells can't, because you have like spell pierce and dispute on the draw sometimes. But I could see stroke being stronger against green. It's anyway. That's the main thing. Um, I decided to remove the rending volley for a fourth lightning axe because I think against red black mid range, having 4 axes seems pretty strong to me. It doesn't seem like it would be that way, but what I noticed was when you play the matchup, if you use a lightning axe, you only have 2 left in your deck, and then it can be kind of hard to answer Shieldred. And I found commonly, if a lot of cards in your hand, if your opponent played Shieldred, it would invalidate them. So, for example, if you have a hand of like Pieces, Drake, and Cruise, um, it's convenient to be able to find the axe more easily. And for example, and I found it was tedious to have to hold it for Shieldred. Like if my opponent had a Fable token, I might want to axe it, but then I didn't want to expose myself to Shieldred. So yeah, that's why I have 4 axes. And also, if you side out Chart, of course, it is upside to discard Phoenix at time. It's not just a force of will or whatever. Um, Regarding the main deck, I guess the main thing that probably stands out to people is the lands. I play 1 less land than other people. I think that this deck playing low lands is pretty important because, I mean, the first example I usually say is imagine if you have an opening hand and it's 4 lands and 2 ops or 2 considers and like a fiery impulse. I'd say that's like a pretty bad hand. Maybe you would keep it against an aggro deck, maybe, if you knew fiery impulse was good. But it's not a very good hand. But if you remove a land and make it almost any spell in the deck, the hand improves, quite a lot. And that's just to illustrate why having lower lands is convenient. That illustrates a few things. Number one, that opt and consider, they're better at finding lands than dealing with when you're flooding. Because if you have like too many lands and you cast opt or consider and draw another land, it's pretty bad situation for you. Because you're playing Arclight Phoenix, so you have a lot of 1 mana spells in your deck. You want to cast 3 spells to trigger Arclight, which isn't trivial. You have a lot of low impact spells in your deck. You want to like cast spells to get Cruise going, so that's why I play 1 less land. You have Pieces, so like if I play an extra spell, it like makes my Pieces more likely to hit. Those are the reasons I play 1 less land than other people, but of course you can play whatever amount you like. It's also kind of marginal, like the 1 land difference. The reason I have 3 Spike Field is I feel like it's pretty important against like green. It's also pretty good against white. And I found that I value hitting these lands with Pieces a lot, so I think I like about 3 creature lands or spell lands because of the pieces of the puzzle. A lot of times it casts Pieces. Sometimes you're missing a land drop. It's pretty nice to hit it. And also it has a lot of synergy in general with a deck. Like you can, with Ledger Shredder, Arclight Phoenix, Thing in the Ice. Pieces, as I said, sometimes you fork it. And, maybe sometimes it helps with Delve. So those are some of the reasons I like the Spike Fields. 3 could be too many, but that's why I like it. Spell Pierce. I like 2 Spell Pierce because you have a lot of cantrips in your deck. So in the mid game, sometimes you're against a deck that's not playing creatures. And then having a Spell Pierce is pretty convenient. And so yeah, that's why I like Spell Pierce. Let's see what else. Chart, of course, I think is it might be too weak to play, honestly. I was thinking about maybe experimenting with trying Quicken, which might be horrible, but I found it's generally pretty weak. It's very nice sometimes with when you trigger Raid, it feels really good. That does feel good. Maybe if you have an Arclight Phoenix in hand and you don't have a Ledger or Axe, acting as a discard outlet to Phoenix can be kind of nice sometimes. But it's generally kind of a dirtly card. It can be easy to fall behind to play it. It's not that great of a cantrip. It's not really that good at finding you what you need. And Ledger has a similar effect, even though they're kind of good together because it triggers raid of like the draw a card and discard a card. I thought a lot about strategic planning, but I do think Chart's probably better. I could write in the guide the pros and cons of it, but it's pretty simple. Basically, I think strategic planning's like mostly better, but Chart of course is better when you have Arclight in your hand. And I basically think that's probably just makes it better. It's pretty awkward if you have planning in your hand and Arclight, because it might sound kind of fringe, but Arclight's pretty bad to have in your hand, so like the ability to discard it is as a discard outlet basically. I think makes it better, even though I think planning's probably stronger in most other cases. That's why I think it's kind of close, because I think the difference of looking at 3 versus 2 cards is a pretty big deal. Like Chart of course you'll find is not that good at really finding you stuff, which is kind of awkward because it's 2 mana cantrip. One thing in the ice, the deck's kind of dirtly, so I like that having another card that helps you, get on board, because you're playing pieces of the puzzle on turn 3 a lot of the time, and it helps you not be too behind on board. I think it's pretty good against green, probably. So that's why I have 1. I could see playing 2, like 2 Chart, 2 Thing. I'm lower on Thing than other people, because usually my game plan with the deck is just to try and go off with the treasure cruise and the pieces, and Thing can make you stumble along the way. But yeah, that's why I have 1 Thing, even though if it looks weird. And yeah, that's kind of the main deck. 3 Cruise, I guess, looks kind of weird, but I think it can be hard to enable the Delve, so I didn't want to play too many Delve spells, because in your opening hand, if you don't have a card like Pieces or a lot of cards to cast, it can be kind of hard to get to Delve. And also if you draw multiple Delve spells, like if your hand is like 3 Delve spells, it gets a lot. And like Fork's kind of similar to Delve spells, like it's usually pretty bad unless you're casting a Delve spell, and it's like pretty clunky in your hand. So that's why I played those. So I'll go to sideboard. I was thinking about maybe talking about 3 axes. I don't really know. I do know, but I used to always play 4 axe, and people would always complain about axe to me, and I always thought it was good. I didn't really understand the complaints, but I guess I kind of eventually decided to follow in with the narrative. But I think it's reasonable. It was like 4 impulse and like 3 spike fields and pierce, and like the logic people say is like if you draw multiple, it's kind of awkward, but it's like a really strong card. I won't get into it too much. Okay, yeah, so the sideboard treasure cruise might look weird to people, but I think it's kind of necessary actually, because in a lot of matchups I like to cut Fork and Time Walk. So you're setting out like 4 expensive spells basically, or 4 spells that are good with pieces. So I think it's really important to set in cruise so that your pieces become good again. Because yeah, like you play 5 Delve spells main, and I think if you're not hitting a Delve spell with pieces, it can be really dirtily. So I think it's important. And again, like you're setting out finishers, like Time Walk Fork's a really good finisher. Treasure Cruise, it's another finisher that's a bit more lean. If you don't the matchup, you don't need the Time Walks. Brotherhood's End. I play 3 just because I feel like I want access to it. Like I want to draw it, and when you play 3 cards, that means you usually draw 1. You're pretty good at finding 1, like 1 every 20 cards. Same with Crackling Drake. Like I kind of want to draw. It doesn't have to be Crackling Drake. It could be any kind of value or threat that's good against graveyard hate. The New Teferi could be interesting or whatever, or Behold the Multiverse or whatever. Like I would prefer its value. So like if it's a card like Young Pyromancer, I would try and be able to squeeze in 3 value cards, because I think it's like matchups like Black Red. It's kind of nice to have like about 3 value cards, so that you have access to drawing it and casting it against them, because they're playing a lot of interaction. I don't know. So I just think it's like you're gonna have time to cast the value card, and it's like pretty important. So that's why I play 3 of each. The reason I don't play a Braid is because I think Brotherhood's End's a bit more powerful than a Braid. Like if you play against mono white or whatever, like board wipes can be powerful. And a Braid has some the nice thing about a Braid is if you play against a deck with Hearse, and Brotherhood's End isn't that good against them, then it's kind of awkward. Like if you play against Blue-Black Control and they have Hearse, or against like some Spirits decks, I guess Brotherhood's End's fine. But like Greasefang, Brotherhood's End's like not that amazing against Greasefang. but a Braid could be. But then I noticed like a Braid, even though it's kind of nice against Grease Fang, it's kind of hard to leave up 2 mana because you don't have a lot of instants in your deck, you know. But obviously it's good, so it's kind of complicated. But it's not as good as you might think because of the fact that it can be kind of hard to leave up mana in this deck. And Grease Fang is like gonna try and play everything besides their Grease Fang. Thing in the ice is like for green, also like it against white, and maybe you'll find other matchups for it. I like it less than most people, so I probably don't set it in too much. But there'll be matchups that can be interesting against. And the counter spells, yeah, like 6 counters, not too much to say. Like you can tinker as a split a bit. I like Dispute because it counters Ledger Shredder in the mirror. And I guess Thing too. So I like about 2, I think, because the mirror is kind of popular now. And yeah, most counter spells are kind of bad in the format, so like Stroke's kind of nice because it hits a lot of the stuff you want to counter. And you can play 3-stroke, 1 gust, I don't know. So yeah, I guess that's the deck. So I'll get into some matchups next. Maybe we should talk about the lands a little bit, actually, before. A lot of people play Stormcarved Coast. I've had bad experiences with that card, so I was happy to cut it from my deck. It's just like really bad that sometimes you're put in bad positions because of the land you play. Love Hall, Odawara, great. I don't play Stoken's because I have 3 Spike Fields, but it's definitely a strong card. And I like 2 islands. I could even see playing a 3rd basic because of Field of Ruin. Playing less than 2, let's just say I get Field of Ruin and don't have a land to fetch, a reasonable amount. I mean, it's not like that much. I wouldn't, if I'm trying to think like 1 in how many games. It's like a decent amount, but like it does happen. I don't know. And I even was 2, but yeah, I think this is fine. So basically, I'm just saying Field of Ruin's real. Okay, we'll get into some matchups now.